My name is Carmen Rowe, and I'm 35 years old. If you've ever watched someone you love smile, really smile, like the world has never hurt them, you know why parents do impossible things. My daughter Lily turned 8 the day my mother tried to steal her future. And I don't mean steal in some metaphorical hurt feelings way. I mean, she stood in the middle of Lily's birthday party, in front of children and neighbors and frosting and balloons, and tried to redirect Lily's college fund like it was her own checking account. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Lily is the kind of kid who collects dreams like other kids collect stickers. She'll tell you she wants to be a doctor and an astronaut and a writer, sometimes all in the same breath, like the universe has infinite room for her. She reads books about space animals and ancient history, and then asks questions that make you pause mid-sentence, because you realize she's not just smart, she's curious in a way that feels sacred. When she was a baby, barely 3 months old, I opened a college savings account in her name. Every month, without fail, I transferred money into it. Some months it was easy. Some months it meant saying no to vacations, driving older cars, skipping little luxuries that my friends didn't think twice about. But every time that balance climbed, I felt something I'd never felt growing up: security. Because security was not something my mother believed in. My mother's name is Patricia. Patricia doesn't just like money. She likes what money can do to people. She likes the way it makes grown adults shrink into children again. She likes the way it can make you feel guilty for wanting peace. My father died when I was 12. There was a life insurance policy, enough that, if handled responsibly, it should have steadied our family. It should have given my sister and me breathing room while we grieved. Instead, it became Patricia's favorite weapon. After Dad died, it was like grief turned into a strict religion, and money was her holy text. Every purchase needed justification. Every dollar earned had to be reported. She kept ledgers, literal ledgers, of what she claimed we owed her for groceries and school clothes, like parenting was a loan agreement. And in that household, there were 2 roles: the one who got saved and the one who was expected to swim. My younger sister, Angela, was the one who got saved. Angela was 2 years younger than me, but somehow she was always too delicate for consequences, too overwhelmed, too stressed, too misunderstood. I was the one Patricia called strong. "You're more capable, Carmen," she'd say, like it was a compliment. "Angela needs more help than you do." Translation: Angela gets grace, you get pressure. When I got my first job at 16, Patricia didn't hug me. She didn't tell me she was proud. She told me how much I needed to contribute to household expenses. Angela? Angela got spending money. Patricia would slip her bills like secret notes of affection. She would buy her things just because. If Angela asked for something, Patricia found a way. If I asked, Patricia found a lecture. The memory that still stings the most happened the year I got into college. I earned a partial scholarship. I wasn't a kid who expected handouts. I had been saving for years. Late shifts, weekends, tired hands counting crumpled bills into a jar. I had a little fund for tuition. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. 2 months before tuition was due, Patricia told me she had invested it. "It's for your own good," she said, avoiding my eyes, like someone who knows they're holding a match near gasoline. "The return will be better than what you would have earned." Those funds never came back. Later, I found out exactly where they went: a house renovation and a vacation. With Angela. When I confronted her, Patricia didn't apologize. She got defensive, like I was ungrateful for being robbed. Improving our living conditions mattered more than wasting money on some fancy degree, she snapped. So I worked. I worked 3 jobs while studying full-time. I slept 4 hours a night if I was lucky. There were mornings I stared at my bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the hollow-eyed person looking back. I graduated anyway, because I wasn't allowed to be anything else. And that's the part Patricia never understood. She thought taking things from me would break me. She never realized it was teaching me exactly how to survive without her. In my senior year, I met Ethan at a campus event. He had this calm, steady energy, like he wasn't trying to win the room. He was just present, safe. The kind of man who listened with his whole face, not just his ears. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, love didn't feel like a test I could fail. Ethan eventually became my boyfriend, my partner in the life I built after escaping Patricia's grip. When we told Patricia we were serious, her first question wasn't about Ethan's character. It wasn't about our happiness. It was, of course, about money. "How much is that ring worth?" she asked later, when we hinted at engagement. Ethan blinked like he thought he misheard. I felt my stomach drop because I didn't mishear. I never did with Patricia. "That money could have gone toward a down payment," she added, like romance was a spreadsheet mistake. I should have taken that moment as a warning, but I wanted so badly to believe distance would soften her, that time would make her kinder, that being a grandmother might finally give her a new way to love. When Lily was born on a crisp autumn morning, everything in me shifted. The nurse placed her in my arms, and Lily's tiny fingers curled around mine like she was anchoring me to a promise. A promise I made silently. She will never be controlled the way I was. When Lily was 3 months old, I opened her college fund. By the time she turned 8, through careful investing and consistent deposits, the account had grown to nearly $50,000. Watching that number rise didn't make me feel rich. It made me feel free. Angela's life, meanwhile, followed a different pattern. She married Brian after dropping out of community college. Brian was charming, always talking big, always promising the next venture would change everything. Except none of them ever did. They hopped from scheme to scheme like they were allergic to stability. And every time something failed, they turned to Patricia. "It's just a loan," Angela would say, voice sweet with practiced helplessness. Not once did they repay any of it. Patricia would bail them out anyway, sometimes even pulling from her retirement accounts. And then she'd call me afterward, not to ask for help, but to make sure I knew who the good child was. "Someone has to help them," she'd say pointedly, as if I was morally defective for not funding their chaos. Lily saw Patricia only a few times a year, holidays, special occasions, and even then, Patricia couldn't help herself. "She should be taking piano lessons," she said once when Lily was 6. "All successful children start early. Madison is already quite skilled." Madison, Angela's daughter, was a year older than Lily, and Patricia treated her like a shiny trophy she could show off. Lily, according to Patricia, was always one correction away from being good enough. Ethan would squeeze my hand under the table when Patricia started in. But what made my blood run cold wasn't just the criticism. It was the private comments Patricia tried to plant in Lily's head. Once, I overheard her whispering to Lily in the hallway, "Your mom doesn't really understand how important it is to plan for the future. When you're older, you can come live with Grandma. I'll make sure you get opportunities your mom won't give you." I stepped into view, and Patricia's smile snapped into place like a mask. That night, I set a boundary. "Do not criticize our parenting to Lily," I told her. "Do not make promises to her. If you have concerns, bring them to me and Ethan privately." Patricia waved a hand like I was being dramatic. "I'm just being a grandmother," she sniffed. "You're too sensitive." Maybe I was sensitive. Or maybe I was finally awake. Still, for Lily's sake, I tried. I wanted my daughter to know her grandmother. I wanted to believe I could manage Patricia's influence with firm boundaries and distance. I didn't realize Patricia didn't see boundaries as rules. She saw them as challenges. And the trouble began on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Lily was at the kitchen table, working on a science worksheet, her tongue poking out slightly, the way it always did when she concentrated. Ethan was washing dishes. I was reading the question out loud when my phone rang. The name on the screen made my shoulders tense before I even answered. "Angela." I almost let it go to voicemail, but she was my sister, so I picked up. "Carmen," Angela said, voice strained, like she'd been practicing the desperation in the mirror. "I need your help." I stepped into the hallway, lowering my voice. "What's going on?" There was a pause. Then, like she was dropping a boulder into my lap, "Brian and I are in serious trouble." My stomach tightened. "What kind of trouble?" "We invested in a restaurant franchise," she said quickly. "The owner promised it was a sure thing, but he took our money and disappeared." She inhaled sharply, then delivered the number like it was supposed to make me fold. "We're $45,000 in debt. The bank is threatening to foreclose on our house." The hallway suddenly felt too small. because I knew that number. I knew it like I knew Lily's birthday and Ethan's laugh and the shape of my own scars. It was almost exactly what we'd saved for Lily's future. Angela's voice rose, sharpening with impatience when I didn't respond fast enough. "Carmen, are you there?" I swallowed. "I'm here," I said. And then, as calmly as I could manage, "I'm sorry this happened, but I can't help you financially." Silence. Then the explosion. "What?" Angela snapped. "You have savings. You have a stable job. You have..." Her voice cracked into anger. "You have a pile of money that could save us." "That money is Lily's college fund," I said. "We're committed to her future." Angela laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was venomous. "She's 8. She won't need it for years." "She'll need it when she's grown," I said. "And she will have it, because I promised myself she would." "What about family?" Angela demanded. "What about helping your own sister?" "I can help you build a budget," I offered, voice tight. "I can help you find financial counseling." "We don't need a lecture," she spat. "We need money." Her breathing sounded fast now, frantic. "If you won't help, I'll talk to Mom," she said. "She at least understands loyalty." The line went dead before I could respond. I stood there in the hallway, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling something old and familiar crawling up my spine. Because when Angela ran to Patricia, Patricia always came back holding a knife. And this time, the knife was pointed at my daughter's future. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid of Angela. Angela was predictable. Loud panic, blame, tears if they worked, rage if they didn't. I was afraid of my mother. Patricia's danger wasn't volume. It was patience. She didn't storm a door down. She waited until you left it unlocked. Around 2:13 a.m., I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to Ethan's breathing beside me. He had his arm draped over my waist, steady and warm, like his body was trying to keep me from floating into the worst-case scenarios. But my mind kept replaying Angela's last sentence. "I'll talk to Mom." I'd spent my entire childhood learning what that meant. When I was 12 and still raw from Dad's funeral, Patricia started using money as a way to keep the world from changing without her permission. When I was 16 and wanted to save for college, she turned my jar of hard-earned cash into her investment. When I was 22 and graduated on fumes, she told me I should be grateful she'd kept a roof over my head. Patricia didn't just take money, she took ownership. And Lily's fund. That was the one thing in my life that felt untouched by her. At 7:06 a.m., my phone rang. I didn't need to look to know who it was. But I did anyway. Like some small part of me hoped I'd been wrong. M-O-M. I slid out of bed quietly and walked into the kitchen. The house was dim and silent, the air still cool from the night. I stared at the phone for a full 3 rings, letting it vibrate against the counter like a trapped insect. Then I answered. "Carmen," Patricia said. Her voice was calm, too calm. Not a greeting, not a, "How's Lily?" Not even the fake sweetness she used in public. Just my name, like a summons. "Morning," I said cautiously. "I've been thinking about Lily's college fund," she continued, as if we were discussing the weather. My stomach clenched so hard I felt nauseous. "Mom." "She's only 8, Patricia cut in. "That money could be put to better use now." I pressed my palm against the counter, grounding myself. "Angela's debt is not Lily's responsibility." Patricia gave a small exhale, the kind that always meant she was disappointed in me for not being obedient. "Don't be selfish," she said, voice sharpening. "Your sister needs help now. Lily won't go to college for another decade. You can save more by then." I could hear my blood in my ears. "No," I said, quietly but firmly. "That money is for Lily's future. It's non-negotiable." Patricia paused. And then her tone changed. Not louder, just colder. "You seem to forget something," she said. "I'm still a signatory on that account. I helped you set it up." The words hit me like a slap. I remembered it instantly. 8 years ago, after Lily was born, Patricia had insisted on coming with us to open the account. She framed it as grandmotherly involvement, like she wanted to feel included in something good. I'd been exhausted from newborn nights and still trying to believe my mother could be normal. When the banker asked if we wanted a backup signatory, just in case, Patricia's eyes had locked onto mine. In case something happens, she'd said gently, like she was offering safety. And I, foolishly, had nodded. Now, 8 years later, that old mistake was staring me in the face. "You're threatening to take money from your granddaughter?" I asked, voice tight. "I'm talking about helping family in need," Patricia snapped, as if that made it noble. "Something you clearly don't understand." "Lily is family," I said. "Her future is family." Patricia's breath hissed through the phone. "If you won't be reasonable," she said slowly, each word measured like a knife being sharpened, "I may need to take matters into my own hands." Silence filled the kitchen like smoke. I stared at the window over the sink. Outside, the sky was pale, barely morning, and the world looked painfully normal. "What are you saying?" I demanded. "I'm saying," Patricia replied, "you don't get to hoard money while your sister's family loses everything. You'll make the right choice, Carmen, or I will." And then she hung up. I stood frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, the line dead. For a moment, I was 12 again, small, trapped, watching my mother decide what was best while I swallowed my own needs like pills. Then Ethan walked in. He'd heard enough of my voice to know something was wrong. He leaned against the doorway in sweatpants, hair messy, eyes narrowed with concern. "Was that your mom?" I looked at him, and the fear in my chest cracked open into anger. "She's still on Lily's account," I said, the words coming out sharp, disbelieving. "She's a signatory, and she basically just threatened to take the money." Ethan crossed the kitchen in 3 steps. "What?" His voice was low, controlled. "She can't do that." "She thinks she can." I swallowed hard. "She said she'll take matters into her own hands." Ethan's jaw flexed. He didn't explode or pace or rant. He did the thing he always did when I started spiraling. He got practical. "Okay," he said steady. "Then we remove the weapon." My eyes stung. "I don't know if I can just remove her. She's listed on the account." "Then we move it," Ethan said. "Today. Not tomorrow. Today." I let out a shaky breath that was half relief, half grief. Because moving it meant admitting something I'd avoided for years, that my mother wasn't safe, and that my old hope, maybe she'll change, was a lie I'd been telling myself for Lily's sake. Ethan reached for my hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Carmen," he said, gentle but firm, "that money represents your promise to Lily. Your mother doesn't get a vote in that." I nodded once, and for the first time since Patricia called, my fear turned into focus. The bank opened at 9. At 8:42, I was already in the parking lot, sitting in my car with the engine off, gripping the steering wheel like I could squeeze my nerves out through my palms. I'd taken the morning off work. Ethan had rearranged his schedule so he could come with me, but he insisted I go first and he'd meet me inside. He wanted to drop Lily at school so she wouldn't feel the tension in our house. When I walked into the bank, the air smelled like paper and carpet cleaner, and the quiet felt wrong, like I was entering a courtroom. A woman in a navy blazer smiled from behind the desk. "Good morning." I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. "I need to make changes to a custodial account for my daughter." She nodded and led me to a desk. "Of course. What kind of changes?" I hesitated, because the truth sounded insane out loud. So I gave the bank version of the truth. "There's a secondary signatory on the account that I'm no longer comfortable with," I said. "I need to secure it." The woman's smile softened. She'd heard enough family drama in her job to recognize the tone. "Okay." She typed, clicked, frowned slightly. "This account has been well maintained for years," she said. "But I should tell you, if she's a signatory, removing her isn't simple. It may require closing and reopening the account." My heart sank, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Then that's what we do," I said. She looked. I was. A manager came over. More forms appeared. Verifications, identity checks, a conversation about custodial structures and transfer procedures that felt like a foreign language when my brain was screaming, "Protect Lily." At one, I stared at him. "My mother threatened my daughter's college fund," I said, the words finally breaking through. His expression changed immediately. Less curiosity, more understanding. "I'm sorry." By the time Ethan arrived, the paperwork was halfway done. He slid into the chair beside me and squeezed my knee under the desk. "You okay?" he murmured. No, it took hours. We closed the old account, opened a new one in Lily's name, with Ethan and me as the only custodians. We added every security option they offered: withdrawal alerts, dual approval requirements, no in-branch access without both of us present. When the transfer finally completed, the number on the screen appeared again: $49,872. There it was. Still Lily's. Still safe. I stared at it until my eyes blurred, because in that moment I realized something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't just about money. This was about control. Patricia didn't want the fund because Angela needed help. Patricia wanted the fund because it proved she still had power over me, and now she didn't. That afternoon, Lily came home from school chattering about a classmate's hamster and a new book in the library. She twirled once in the living room, showing off the paper crown her teacher let her keep for her birthday week. Ethan and I smiled and laughed at the right moments, but our bodies were tense, like the house itself was holding its breath. And then, 2 days later, a card arrived in the mail. The envelope was pink, addressed in careful cursive. "Dearest Lily," it read. "Grandma can't wait to celebrate your special day with a very special surprise. Love always, Grandma Patricia." Ethan stood behind me as I held the card. I could feel his breath against my hair. "What do you think the surprise is?" he asked softly. I stared at the handwriting. "A special surprise. A public move. A trap." "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I don't like it." Ethan's hand rested on my shoulder. "We don't have to invite her," he said. And there it was. The fork in the road, the boundary I'd never fully enforced, because Lily still loved her grandmother. Lily didn't know the history, the pattern, the way Patricia could smile while she was tightening a noose. "She'll notice," I said quietly. "She'll ask why Grandma isn't there." "And what do we say?" Ethan countered, not harshly, just real. "That we kept her away because she's dangerous with money?" I closed my eyes. I hated that this was my reality. I hated that my mother could turn a child's birthday into a battlefield. But I also knew something else. If Patricia came, she would make it about herself. And if she didn't get what she wanted quietly, she'd try to take it loudly. Ethan leaned in, voice low. "Whatever happens, we hold the line." I nodded slowly, my throat tight. "We let her come," I said, "for Lily. But we watch her." Ethan's fingers squeezed my shoulder. "Okay," he said, "then we're ready." But as I stared at that phrase, very special surprise, I couldn't shake the feeling that Patricia wasn't planning to surprise Lily. She was planning to punish me, and the party hadn't even started yet. Lily's birthday morning dawned bright and impossibly cheerful, the kind of day that feels unfair when you're carrying dread in your chest. The backyard looked like something out of a storybook. Ethan had strung fairy lights between the trees at dawn, the cords looping gently like fireflies frozen mid-flight. Paper mushrooms dotted the grass, cardboard owls perched on the fence. Carmen, planned every detail for weeks because Lily loved anything that felt magical. She twirled in her purple dress, the skirt flaring as she laughed, a paper crown tilted sideways on her head. "Mom," she called, "do you think fairies live in our tree?" I smiled, crouching to fix her crown. "If they do, they're very lucky fairies." For a few hours, I almost forgot. Children arrived, parents chatted, music floated through the air. Lily ran from station to station, her laughter ringing like a bell that kept pulling my attention back to her joy. But my eyes kept drifting to the driveway. Patricia was late. She was never late. At exactly 30 minutes past the start time, a silver sedan rolled in. My stomach dropped. The passenger door opened first. Angela stepped out. Then Brian. Then Madison. I hadn't expected all of them. They hadn't RSVP'd. Patricia hadn't mentioned bringing them. And then my mother emerged from the driver's seat, immaculate as always, hair perfectly styled, lips painted in that calm, authoritative shade she wore when she wanted to be taken seriously. She barely looked at me as she walked past. "Grandma!" Lily squealed, sprinting across the lawn. Patricia knelt, arms open wide, smile stretching flawlessly across her face. There's my favorite girl. I watched the embrace, my hands clenched so tightly my nails bit into my palms. Patricia handed Lily a small, exquisitely wrapped box and an envelope. "For later," she said sweetly. Angela hovered nearby, avoiding my eyes. Brian shifted awkwardly, already sweating. Ethan came to stand beside me. "Something's off," he murmured. "I know." Throughout the afternoon, I noticed Patricia and Angela whispering together, by the drink table, near the fence, behind the shed. Every time I approached, they'd separate like guilty children. I smiled for Lily. I laughed when I was supposed to, but my body stayed tense, like a wire pulled too tight. Then it was time for presents. Lily sat at the picnic table, carefully unwrapping each gift, thanking every friend with the seriousness only children can muster. When she opened Patricia's box, she gasped. A delicate silver bracelet. "It's beautiful, Grandma," Lily said, holding out her wrist. Patricia fastened it gently, her fingers lingering just a second too long. The envelope held a card with $50 tucked inside. Nothing suspicious. For one fleeting moment, I thought maybe I'd been wrong. The cake came out, candles flickered, everyone sang. Lily leaned forward, cheeks puffed, eyes shining. And that's when Patricia stood. She tapped her glass with a spoon. The sound cut through the yard. "Before we continue," she said brightly, "I have a special announcement." My heart slammed against my ribs. Even the kids went quiet. Patricia smiled, scanning the faces gathered around like she was taking inventory. "As many of you know," she continued, "Lily has a college fund that her parents and I have been contributing to since she was born." That was a lie. She had never contributed a cent. "Today," Patricia said, turning toward Angela, "we've decided that money will be redirected to help family in need. Angela and Brian are going through a difficult financial time." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lily frowned, her hands hovering over the cake knife. "Grandma?" she asked softly. "This is what family does," Patricia declared. "We help each other. Lily is young. She has plenty of time. But her aunt needs help now." Silence. I could feel Ethan's hand gripping mine under the table. Lily's lower lip trembled as she looked up at me, and something in me snapped, clean and sharp. I stood, slowly, calmly. "You mean the account I closed last month?" I said. The color drained from Patricia's face. She fumbled in her purse, pulling out her phone, fingers shaking as she opened her banking app. "What did you do?" she hissed. I met her eyes. Steady, unflinching. "I protected my daughter's future." The yard erupted. Murmurs, shocked whispers. Patricia's composure shattered. "You had no right," she shrieked. "I'm a signatory." "Exactly why I closed it," I said. "That money belongs to Lily, not to Angela, not to Brian, not to you." Angela started crying. Brian stared at the ground. Children began to cry, confused by the sudden tension. Lily burst into tears, burying her face in Ethan's chest. "That's enough," I said, my voice firm. "You need to leave." "This isn't over," Patricia snarled. "You'll regret this, Carmen." "Please leave," Ethan added calmly. Patricia spun on her heel, storming toward the house. Angela and Brian scrambling after her. Within minutes, guests began making excuses. The magic evaporated. Lily sat at the table, cake untouched, tears streaking her cheeks. "Why is Grandma mad?" she whispered. "Is it because of me?" I knelt beside her, heart breaking. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "Never because of you." But as I hugged my daughter, I knew, with chilling certainty, my mother hadn't just crossed a line. She'd declared war. That night, after the guests were gone and the fairy lights blinked uselessly in the empty yard, Lily fell asleep curled between Ethan and me. Her bracelet lay on the nightstand, untouched. I stared at it for a long time, wondering how something so small could carry so much weight. The next morning, we sat Lily down at the kitchen table with her favorite pancakes. She poked at the blueberries with her fork. "Did Grandma get mad because you didn't want to share?" she asked quietly. I took a breath. "Sometimes grown-ups confuse sharing with taking," I said gently. "That money is for you, and our job is to protect it." Lily thought for a moment, then nodded. "Like how I don't have to give away my Lego set just because someone else wants it?" "Exactly," Ethan said, smiling softly. She seemed satisfied with that. but Patricia was not. By noon, my phone was vibrating nonstop, texts filled with accusations, guilt, threats. One message stood out. You stole from me. I've spoken to my bank. I'm talking to a lawyer. My hands shook, but Ethan's voice was steady. Block her, just for now. So I did. 2 days later, a certified letter arrived. Lawyer, fraud, demands. I contacted an attorney of my own, who reviewed everything calmly and then looked up at me. She has no case, he said. You did exactly what a parent is supposed to do. The relief made me dizzy. A week after that, my Aunt Martha called, Patricia's sister, a woman I barely knew. She did this to me too, Martha said quietly. And Carmen, your mother has a gambling problem. She's had it for years. Suddenly, everything clicked. The control, the desperation, the obsession with money that was never enough. It didn't excuse her, but it explained her. A month later, Angela called. She didn't scream. She didn't ask for money. She apologized. We're getting counseling, she said. Real help. No more bailouts. Life didn't magically fix itself after that, but it changed. Slowly. Carefully. Patricia disappeared for a while. Then, almost a year later, she showed up at Lily's next birthday. Quiet, restrained, different. She didn't mention money. She didn't take the stage. And when she finally said it was about control, I knew something had broken loose inside her. Our relationship will never be perfect, but Lily's future is safe. And for the first time in my life, I understand something my mother never taught me. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. Sometimes it's the bravest kind of love.